Bonjour, je m'appelle Susan Damiani. Welcome to St. John's University Power Hour number 21. And I am so excited today. And I'll tell you why. We are here live at Bistro Eloise in Jackson Heights, Queens. This is our very first Power Hour that's live on location. And I have to thank this gentleman sitting right next to me for making this happen. Just like Kelly and Ryan, I was tired of virtual and I needed to go on location. So we're really going to immerse you in the French culture today with Vincent Caro, who's the owner of Bistro Eloise here in Jackson Heights, and also Greg Bruhn, who's the director of our Outbound Program for the Office of International Education. And they are going to share their knowledge, their expertise, and of course, Vincent is born and raised in France. So they are going to share everything about the wonderful food and culture of the French people. And our video producer today, Fabien, he is also French. So we're very French here today. The other reason, you're probably wondering, like, why did I choose the Power Hour, a trip to France this particular week? Actually, we were supposed to be in Paris. St. John's has a travel program called the Globetrotter program. And we were supposed to be in Paris. And obviously, due to the pandemic, we have to postpone our trip to next year. So if you didn't get an opportunity to sign up, it's not too late. If the health officials in St. John's give us the okay, we will be going to France next year in October. So with that ado, I don't want to waste any time. It's really today is going to be an escape from all this madness. And we are just going to have a fun time. What also is unique about this Power Hour is it just so happened that a couple of my friends happened to stop by the restaurant and they're having brunch with us today. So you'll be able to see some of them and they'll be included in the Q&A for today. So thank you for joining us virtually as well as in the restaurant today. And I'm going to turn it over to Vincent and Greg, and they'll begin our discussion of French food and culture. Merci.
Cool. So I'm Gregory Bruhn. I'm the Director of Outbound Programs at St. John's University. I'm really delighted to be welcoming you to this Power Hour and to be joined by Vincent to discuss French culture, French food, and a couple of our favorite regions, which are Normandy and Brittany. And so just to give you a little background on how this will work today, we're going to do a little bit of a presentation. I'll have Sue start the slideshow in just a moment. And then after my presentation on Normandy, Vincent and I will take some time to be in conversation and have a little interview about his life, about French food, and some of the delights that you'll find at Bistro Eloise. So with that, Sue, I'm going to have you start the presentation on slide 1. So just a bit of background about myself. I became interested in France and all things French as a young student in Maine, where my school started teaching French in the 5th grade. And I went on to study abroad during university and had the great fortune to spend an academic year at Rouen in Normandy, the old capital of Normandy, which we'll discuss later in the presentation. And there I also had the opportunity to live with a French family for a year and really have a truly immersive experiences. And so one of the reasons I'm so passionate today about working in international education is because I recognize what a profound effect that year had on the rest of my life, both professionally and personally. Living in another culture, in another language, challenging myself to embrace those differences, I came to realize that on some level, there was nothing I couldn't do. It really inspired me to trying new things, and I've since worked as a French professor in Marymount, a translator for Norton Press, an interpreter for the Paris Opera Ballet, and had a long side career in catering, where I was able to work with some famous chefs, including Jacques Pepin and Jacques Torres through the French Culinary Institute. So New York, in fact, offers many ways to connect into French culture, such as this bistro, and today we'll focus a bit on a few regions in travel distance to Paris in the hopes of inspiring you in your own cultural and culinary journeys in France. And so regarding the geography of Normandy, I have to say I felt right at home there. It's a pretty rugged landscape, very similar to Maine. It's sauvage, as they say in French, with some pretty dramatic coastline, and in many ways it reminded me of where I grew up. So there are many incredible places to visit at a really short distance to Paris. And today, if you go to slide two, we'll start off in Giverny, which is about an hour from Paris. Next slide. Then we'll move to Rouen, the former seat of the Norman nobility, a vibrant city along the Seine. Next slide, please. Then on to Dieppe and Etretat, two seaside towns with magnificent chocolates. Next slide, please. On to Honfleur and Deauville, some of the most picturesque port towns you'll ever see. And finally, on to the next slide, on to Mont Saint-Michel and Saint-Malo, located at the edge of Brittany and Normandy. These are two magical medieval walled cities defining the north surf of the Atlantic, and where I personally discovered quicksand for the first time in my life as a younger man. So next slide, we'll start in Giverny. So Giverny is an incredible little village nestled in the Norman countryside, known most famously for its painter-in-residence, Claude Monet, who lived there from 1883 until his death in 1926. His famous pink house is settled among a tremendous garden, complete with his lily ponds and laurel wreaths, and the interior is filled with the Japanese art that inspired him in his own work. The little town itself is also filled with gardens and maybe about 10 to 20 homes. It's quite small, but there are some excellent hotel restaurants for a great meal after your tour. I happened to be there in May, and the village was just full of irises in all of its fields. Next slide, please. And so this is where I live. This is Rouen, which is the seat of the Norman aristocracy and the capital of the province for centuries. And it's thanks to the Norman conquest, in fact, of 1066, that English as a language contains so many French words, particularly related to food. If you do get to Rouen, this is where Richard the Lionhearted is buried in its cathedral. It's also quite a difficult city to pronounce, and I remember as a study abroad student, if people understood you the first time you said the city, you know you've made progress with your accent. It's pronounced Rouen, which is very, very French and very difficult to say. Rouen is both a modern industrial port along the Seine, as well as a historic strolling city with a great network of pedestrian areas in its centre-ville. You see here the high Gothic cathedral that dominates the center of town. Next slide, please. So here on slide 10, Rouen, this is a painting by Monet. Rouen is known as the city of 100 spires. You'll see that Monet was inspired by painting from the hills around Rouen and capturing its cathedral, seen here in the center of the painting. Next slide. He painted it over. Next slide. Next slide. And over. Next slide. In the kind of different kinds of morning and evening light. Next slide. Actually, back one slide, sorry. And so there are dozens of examples that exist of Monet's fascination with the Rouen Cathedral, and those can be found in various museums in and around Paris and Normandy. So next slide, slide 15. So within walking distance to the cathedral, you can see some of Monet's paintings in the impressive Museum of Fine Arts. And along the way, you can stroll under the 14th century great clock and tower that arches over the main shopping street. For the linguists out there, the clock is so old that it's still called in its masculine form the Rue du Gros Horloge, even though the word clock became feminine a few centuries later, and now you should say Rue de la Grosse Horloge. This is just a holdover from medieval French. Next slide. Rouen is also the site where Joan of Arc was imprisoned, and ultimately burned at the stake in 1431 at the age of 19. Today, there's a soaring contemporary church in honor of on the spot where she died so tragically, in the shape of an overturned boat in honor of Normandy's seafarers, and with some of the most colorful stained glass you'll ever see. Next slide. Tours of the tower where she was. The tower dates back to the 15th century. Next slide. Next slide. Well, no, it's also known for its half-timber houses, which you'll see on slide 18. If you could go to the next slide, Sue. If you could go back to slide 18. These are a couple of examples of the half-timber houses you see all over Normandy. It's very stereotypical. And even the McDonald's in Rouen is located in an old half-timber house. Next slide, Sue. So here you have two of the more famous authors that come from Rouen. The first is Pierre Corneille, high master of the classical tragedic theater in the early part of the 17th century. Next slide. And Gustave Flaubert, 19th century author of the very famous Madame Bovary. Flaubert's father, in fact, was a doctor in Rouen, and you can also visit their home and Dr. Flaubert's office, which is now a museum dedicated to 19th century science. You can also view Parrot, which inspired the Julian Barnes novel from the 1990s by the same name, Flaubert's Parrot, and recounts an English doctor's visit to Rouen to discover if it was truly Flaubert's real parrot. Next slide. So, though not from Rouen, Guy de Maupassant is another famous author from Normandy from the 19th century, and he really captures the feel of the countryside, the rugged landscape, and the peasant folk of the 19th century. Next slide. So next slide, Sue. Cool. So leaving Rouen, you can travel out to the coast where you'll find Dieppe and Etretat, two coastal towns that offer some of the most magnificent cliffs that the Norman coast has to offer. The white chalk cliffs soar above the English Channel, and Etretat in particular is known for the chalk archways that have formed out into the ocean as a result. These are both some great places to sample the famous moules marinières, seaside mussels, that are available in all of the different seaside towns. Next slide. Down the coastline are Honfleur and Deauville, which are both great strolling towns and a great place to sample the abundant seafood found along the coast, from langoustes or prawns to the coquille Saint-Jacques or sea scallops. Next slide, please. So just off the coast of Normandy and Brittany is the awe-inspiring Mont Saint-Michel, a fortified abbey town built on an island. In fact, you can do the crossing of the bay by foot at low tide and with a tour guide, which is very important, because there are puzzles that it's a tremendous way to arrive to the abbey and approach the island on foot. Next slide. Saint-Malo is another fortified medieval town along the coast. This is an incredible place to visit because it is in fact a replica of it. Much of Saint-Malo was in fact destroyed during World War II, and through the use of old drawings and photographs, the town has been reconstructed exactly as it had been before the war. You'd really have no idea that the buildings aren't ancient and medieval. And so for the readers out there, I can also highly recommend the novel All the Light We Cannot See, which came out in the last decade, where Anthony Doerr masterfully captures the magic of this little town as told through the experiences of a blind girl in World War II. It's a sweet and haunting novel, and as an aside too, the writer Chateaubriand is immortalized with a tomb just off the coast of Saint-Malo on a small island. So a little tour of Normandy. If we go to the next slide, we will start talking about what's brought everyone here today in the restaurant, which is la cuisine and French food. So next slide. When you think of France, you of course think of its bread and fresh bread and baguettes. Next slide. It's croissant, seen here with chocolate, but also known for its almond variety. Next slide. The chocolate eclair, which is my favorite, an eclair au chocolat, which is named after a flash of lightning, an eclair, because you eat them in a flash. Next slide. And of course, the very colorful treats, the macaron. So next slide, please. So each region is known for its own style of cooking and ingredients, and these are some of the things not to miss when you are in Normandy, known for its heavy use of crème fraîche, butter, cream, apples, and of course its seafood. So next slide. It's also home to some of the best sauerkraut or choucroute in France. And so though this is typically thought of as an Alsatian dish, Normandy has mastered this dish in its own style, and it's quite common throughout the region. Next slide. An afternoon in Normandy should be accompanied by one of the numerous pâtés de campagne, or country pâtés, that come from the farms all around the country. As an added treat, they always served with these cute little pickles called cornichons. And Normans put plenty of crème fraîche on everything, from pies to cakes to green beans to chicken. It's really part of any part of the meal, as you'll discover there. Next slide. And a traditional dinner would be complete without a thick slice of the famous Norman apple pie called a tarte tatin, a pie that was invented by two sisters in the 1880s. With apples being a common fruit tree in Normandy, this type of dessert is found all over the place. Next slide. There are also a number of apple-derived drinks, including cidre brut, or hard cider, and calvados, a much stronger brandy-like alcohol derived from apples. That's also where you get the expression un trou normand, which is a Norman hole. It's the shot of alcohol you take between courses to burn a hole in your stomach and allow for more room for your next course. It's quite a delight of any French meal. Next slide, please. So Normandy is also known for a wide variety of very creamy cheeses, a lot of triple creams, and no dinner is complete without a cheese course just before the desserts. So with a range of cheeses like Pont-l'Evêque and Saint-Nectaire, next slide. This is also where you'll find the best camembert and brie in the country, as well as, on the next slide, an herbed boursin. Next slide. The Brillat Savarin, which is another triple cream that's light and earthy. Me too, I'm starting to get hungry as well. The next slide, as well as the Livarot, which is a more intense nutty cheese. And finally, on the next slide, the very oddly named Little Swiss, or Petite Suisse, which is a thick yogurt-like cheese served for dessert that actually comes not from Switzerland, but from Normandy. Cool, and that is the end of our presentation. Thank you so much, Sue, for running through it. That for us. So we'll end there and come back into the restaurant. Are we back on screen? Yes. Cool. So that is a whirlwind view of one of my favorite regions in France. It's where I got to spend a couple of years living and working and really discovering the food over there. So now I'd like to turn my attention to the wonderful location that's hosting this event today, Bistro Eloise. As I said, I'm joined today by the owner, Vincent Caro. So bonjour, Vincent.
Bonjour, Greg.
So why don't you talk a little bit about where you're from and tell us about the region of Brittany.
So first of all, thank you, Greg and Susan, for organizing this event here and supporting the initiative of the exchange program. And because I was also part, when I came to the US, I was part of the exchange program in Orlando, in Epcot Center. I was working with for Paul Bocuse. So
Wow.
I recognize myself a little bit in this
In that story.
in
Ah,
that
interesting.
story.
I didn't realize that you had studied it before. That was part of the exchange program with cooking.
I mean, working. I was working at the. I was working for the French pavilion in Epcot. Yeah.
Ah, interesting. And so you come from Brittany. Um,
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that province and how it compares to Normandy.
So I was born and raised in Brittany, in Brest, which, like um, like you said, I don't remember which city you said you mentioned in Normandy was like destroyed by during the Second World War.
Saint-Malo.
So Saint-Malo, yes, Saint-Malo, which is in Brittany too, but. Yes, but yeah, Brest was also destroyed during the Second World War. There's a lot of similarities between Brittany and Normandy, but I was born and raised more in the like down the state, so near Quimper, which is in the Finistère, which means the end of the world, because it's the western region in the continent of Europe.
Ah, yeah, interesting.
So
Yeah, and it is named Finistère, which means the very end of the world.
yes.
And so is Brest on the coast or is it more inland?
Brest is an harbor, yeah. Is known for being a military harbor.
Cool. And so how did you come to discover your passion for food? What inspired you to participating in cooking?
I mean, I first started when I was like 14 years old, and a good friend of mine a good friend of my parents had a restaurant, and on the weekends and on vacations, I will go work in the restaurant. To first, it was like to make some little pennies for to buy some candies, but then I discovered like a real heart and yeah, it's a passion to work in that industry. So and little by little, like I work more often, and here I am.
Yeah, here we are in Queens today. Yeah, I mean, France itself as a country has really mastered gastronomy. Each region is known for its own different specialties. So what's particular about Breton cuisine and the type of food that you ate growing up?
I mean, the main ingredient in the Brittany cuisine is the butter. butter.
Yeah.
If there's no butter, it's not Breton cuisine.
Yeah, that's fine
Like
with me.
in the crepes, like the most famous dish from Brittany is the crepes, like the buckwheat crepe.
Mhm.
There's also a kika farce, which is like the Brittany version of like the choucroute,
Oh,
but instead of like sauerkraut, it's buckwheat pudding.
oh, interesting.
So yeah, we have the gâteau breton, which we have some simple here. It's also a lot of butter,
Just like the
and
croissant.
like the croissant, yeah. There's also like cider, like we have a lot of similarities with Normandy, like the crepes, the cider, like the culture, like we're kind of like the brother and like the brother
Brothers and
states.
sisters. Yeah.
So I have a lot of family. My family is from Brittany, but a lot of them like moved to Normandy. So yeah, I recognize myself a lot in Normandy too.
Yeah, it's true that there's a lot of butter in the cooking. I actually took one other thing that you can do in New York City if you want to explore some French culture is to take a croissant baking class, and you'll never see so much butter go into one little pastry. It's remarkable. And so, how did you come to Queens and start working in New York in the restaurant industry?
So I arrived in the US in 2005. I spent like 6 months in Orlando, and then I moved to New York. I came on they call that back to back. It's like 2 days off on 1 week, 2 days off on another week, and you can take 4 days to take a trip. New York, I was like, wow. And I went back there and I said, like, I'm moving to New York. And a month later, I was here. And
were you working in the restaurant industry during that time?
yes. So I looked for a job. Someone gave me an opportunity, told me, like, you have 2 days to come back. I'll save you the job. I was like, okay, you will see me in 2 days.
Oh, fantastic.
And
so when did you open your first restaurant?
I opened it in 2016.
2016. And that was here in Queens as well?
It was in Queens, in Sunnyside. But yes, and due to so I had a short lease, so I had to find a solution to keep a restaurant open. So I met the owner of the bakery next door, Canal, Jean-Claude, and he told me, I have a wonderful spot for you if you want. And I told him, give me 2 weeks to think of it. Within 3 days, I went back and I was like, I take it. And so here we are, and yeah. So unfortunately, the first place due to the COVID has been closed, and
so you've been able to keep this restaurant open.
Yeah, I worked harder and harder since the COVID to keep this afloat, and so far I can't complain.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful space. I've had the pleasure of coming here a couple of times in preparation for this event, and it's true, as Vincent said, right next door is Canal Bakery, so you can not only come for your French lunch or dinner here at Bistro Eloise, get some pastries and baguette to take home with you, as I will be doing after lunch today, for sure. I mean, it's a lovely French atmosphere inside, a very stereotypical French atmosphere with mirrors and a lot of light. The cafe is set up, but you've done a tremendous job outside in providing safe space for people to come during COVID. So that's been a real treat for me as well. So what are some of the specialties of the restaurant here at Bistro Eloise?
They can typical French dishes from like all over France. Like it goes from beef bourguignon to like coq au vin. On the winter time, we have the bouillabaisse, we have the cassoulet. But cassoulet, like foie gras, like you can find most of the traditional dish made like with love.
Made with love. Cuisine. Really do.
Yes. Yes. Also crepes, like the buckwheat crepes and the sweet crepes.
Yeah, I loved learning in France that generally see crêpe when it's a sugary sweet dessert.
Yes.
But galette, which is the buckwheat pancake, which tends to be served savory, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, I believe it depends where you are, where you're from, because like if you go in Rennes, which is the big city in Brittany, but it's on the east side of Brittany, like they call it the galette. But like where I'm from, we still call it crepe.
Yeah. So I like too that galette is also the name of the stones that you find at the beach along the coast of.
No, that's galet.
It's not galette.
It's a GALET.
Okay, so I'm a bad French teacher today. I thought that was always the galette.
See, you learned something at the Power Hour.
Exactly.
Right? We all learned, right?
You get to continue to learn. You get to continue to learn. Oh, so what's on the menu for today's lunch?
For today's lunch, we're gonna do like a little testing of different lunch specialty, like the crepes, the galette.
Not the galette. Not the galette. The galette.
And some house creations, like different mac and cheese, like lobster mac and cheese, because Brittany is known for like the seafood, like in Normandy.
Right.
So we have also like this coquille Saint-Jacques, which is the sea scallops, the lobster. We even have our own lobster, which is in most part of the world you only find the main lobster, which is the red one.
Right.
And in Brittany, we have the blue lobster, which is much, it's more, I will say it's more tasty, more refined.
Interesting. Well, we both come from regions with lobster itself from Maine, so
Yes.
the battle of the international lobsters. Interesting. Cool. So, Susan, did you want to take some questions perhaps from the audience?
Yeah, we can take if you can't hear, I have to sit it. You have to put your masks on, but I can. Oh, it's all. This is the fun of live. No, well, he's gonna move it over to me. Yeah, thank you. Okay. This is the fun part of being live, live location. So I hope you enjoyed the discussion. We're opening it up to questions. You have these experts here. If you were planning a trip to France, now's your time to ask all the great questions, and I'm sure they'll be able to give you some tips on where to go and restaurants and all that good stuff. But I have a question pertaining to that. So if I'm planning a trip, obviously I just told everyone we were planning a trip to Paris and to Normandy. If you only had a week, I mean, where do you go? What would you recommend as a trip to France if you only had 1 week?
Brittany and Normandy.
Brittany, they're so partial. Brittany, okay, well, I agree, but yeah.
We usually do 3-4 days in Paris and then do day trips at the Mont Saint Michel, with the Green Cemeteries in Normandy. So there's a lot to see in a very small distance, and you can really pack a lot into 1 week.
What about you, Vincent? Besides Brittany.
No. I was
I know
joking,
you're
but
joking.
no, yeah, you can. I mean, either you can do Paris, Normandy, a few days in Paris, 2 days in Normandy, a few days in Brittany, or you can, if you're more into like the terroir, you can do Normandy, Brittany, you can go to Bordeaux to taste some great
Yeah, 'cause
wine.
we have the wine, let's not forget.
And
There's also the Loire Valley.
yes.
Normandy in the Loire Valley. Or even go further down into southern France, into Provence, down on the southern coast. There's a tremendous amount of villages and small towns with great museums, a completely different architecture. And that's where you'll find some traditional dishes and some of the more southern cuisine in France. Bouillabaisse, of course, is also from the south. Yeah, really, you can't go wrong. I mean, wherever you go, you'll find a unique cuisine, a unique architecture, and a lot to see within a short distance.
You probably could use a month for sure. We have some interesting audience members that I want to introduce to you. First, we have, if you've joined us for some of our power hours, you'll notice we have Chef Danny in the audience. Thank you, Chef, for joining us. I invited Danny because he studied in France, right, Danny? And Would you like, do you have anything to share for our audience about France or French cuisine?
Into the rest of this hour. I'm a bit of a.
He can't hear. Oh, I have to repeat. Okay. Sue is saying I have to repeat what you say. Okay.
Ever since I started working with France back in 2007 or 8, I've really, my love for French food and French culture has really grown.
Chef 2007, 2008, you know, his love of the French cuisine has just grown and grown and grown. And actually, he invited one of his friends. So we're very honored to have the vice president of the Master of French Chefs. Is that correct? Claude, thank you so much for joining us. This is such a great honor to have you here. So what did you think about the discussion? Did we do the French food and culture justice? Here, come here, Claude. Come sit with us here. I'll put my mask on. Yeah.
Things that I would like to share with you, that it's not France is not only Brittany and Normandy.
Yes.
You have also Burgundy.
Yes.
That's where I'm coming from. That's why I'm mentioning it.
Right. See, here we're getting territorial now. Okay.
and in Paris, everything is more or less between 2 hours to 6 hours drive or train to go to the further part of France, and you can discover a wonderful land, wonderful, beautiful villages and town, diverse vineyards, and depends on what you are looking for, actually.
And since you are the vice president for the Master of Chefs, what's happening? Where are all our French restaurants? They all disappeared for a while. Are they coming back?
They are suffering. That's true, actually. Yes, but you know, it's when you are a chef, you have to fight for your business. Chefs are showing that they are a fighter, and in France and in New York and all over the world, actually, all the chefs are fighting to keep their business open. It's not very easy, but I think when you love what you want to do, when you are making on a daily basis, you are fighting and you will survive.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Do you find country French is becoming more popular than the more formal French cuisine? Has there been like a change?
Yeah,
especially here in the States.
Yeah, but you see changes in all kind of cuisine, actually. All the cuisine all around the world are changing, moving, getting some fusion, getting some more traditional. We see some changes, but you know, sometimes we are seeing French cuisine as heavy because we are using a lot of butter, a lot of cream, a lot of things. It becomes more and more a cliche, actually, because chefs are changing the way they are working, and it's interesting to look at the techniques more. Developing a new techniques like sous vide or you know, low temperature cooking, and we always been on the first place by putting techniques in front of our job.
Yeah, we love, you know, the French food, really, and the French wine. I mean, especially the French white wine. I absolutely love. It's wonderful. Well, stay here because we have some questions for everyone. Let's see. This is a great question. What is a St. John student experience in France?
Well, I mean, the St. John's students have actually a lot of opportunities in study abroad. St. John's is really ahead of the game for the type of programming that we do. So right from day one, students had the opportunity to participate in the Global Passport program. This is a great program for first-year students. It's designed just for them, and that's pretty unique because most universities do not allow their first-year students to study abroad. So we've designed a program specifically for them to take them to Rome or Paris in their first year for 1 week as part of their core program. We also have a campus in Paris, located in the 6th arrondissement. And there we run a semester program every fall and summer programs and summer sessions 1 and 2. And so not only do we have a classic French program where students can take art, literature, philosophy, and theology courses, but we have a special biology and chemistry program in the fall to help STEM students get abroad. And that's also a STEM program specific.
Thanks, Greg. I hear the Paris campus is absolutely beautiful, and I have not been, so we'll see next October. My fingers crossed. The next question, I think, for all of you, but particularly for Vincent and Claude, and I'll have Vincent speak, and then you can answer, Claude. If you only had one place to visit in France, what would it be? We already know your point. We already know what you're going to say.
No,
No, okay.
like I
You
think
should say it.
no, yeah, I mean Brittany, no, but I think it depends. It depends what you're looking for. Like if you wanna be like on the water,
Right.
if you wanna be in near the mountain, if you're gonna go to the mountains. I mean, there's so much diversity in France. Like Claude said, it's you need to pick what you wanna see, and then you can. But there's so many places like like in Brittany, you go to Saint-Malo, you go to Karnak in the south where you have the Stonehenge alignment. Like you go in the south, you have all the medieval castles in like Carcassonne. You go to like, I mean, there's so many. It depends what interest you have in the visit. It's like going to the it's like taking a vacation going I'm going to the beach or I'm going to the mount to ski. So like it's you have a lot of vineyards in France. You have there's so many. You can go to Champagne, like visit the Champagne castles. It's there's so much culture.
Vincent's correct. I guess to the person who asked the question, it's really, what is it that you enjoy? Is it the wine country, or like he said, the water, or you like the city or the museums and so forth? So yeah, that's a hard question to answer, but I'm going to turn it over to Claude. Claude, do you want to answer that question?
I agree with Vincent. It's difficult to answer that. I mean, if you have only 2 days, or you land to Paris, and you will see a beautiful face of France. If you have more time, then you can cruise all around the country. Like I said, I'm from Burgundy, but I love the Mont Saint-Michel, for example. This is it's a outstanding place. And if I want to go for a wine trip, then I would go to Beaune. Beaune, it's a beautiful small city. It's
How do you spell that, Claude?
Beaune, and it's a city where it's a small city in the middle of the vineyard, and I think that's where they are doing one of the most beautiful wine in the world. I mean, it's fantastic.
Sounds beautiful. Okay, we're going to go to the next question. It says, where in New York City can we experience French culture? Well, first, Bistro Eloise. Anyone want to answer that?
Yeah, there's a lot to do even this weekend through the French Institute Alliance Française. There's the Molière play. It was presented virtually. So there's a lot of through the Columbia Theater companies come through New York, of course. So, for example, that often brings the ballet, the Paris Opera Ballet Company, and some of the main theater companies out of Paris, like the Théâtre des Bouffes du Nord, or keep an eye on BAM, the Brooklyn Academy of Music, which also brings in different French companies. I live in Brooklyn as well. So if you happen to be on Smith Street around July 14th, they do a great Bastille Day party. And you can also, they close off the street and you can play pétanque. Yeah. It's quite fun and quite festive. And so those are just a few of the ways that you can participate in French culture in the city.
This reminds me of a conversation the three of us were having. Vincent, you mentioned, there are certain festivals, but there was one festival you were talking about yesterday that sounded a lot of fun in Vincent's hometown. Right? It was a hometown?
Near my hometown, yes, there is. There are quite a few. There's a big like Celtic festival in Lorient called Festival Interceltic, and it's even broadcasted on the French national TV. It lasts like 10 days in August. There's also there's a lot of festivals over there. In Quimper, there's a festival of the Cornouailles. It's they wear, the participants, they wear like traditional Breton costumes, which is pretty interesting to see. And we have also the biggest music festival in Europe, which is called Les Vieilles Charrues, like the big stuff.
What time is it?
It's around. It's the weekend after the Bastille Day. So, but like Bruce Springsteen went there. Like this year they canceled it, but Celine Dion was supposed to be there. There's a lot of big artists, and I grew up going there.
You're a music man. Okay. Outside of food, what is your favorite French cultural activity to do? Really? Claude? Claude came in on a scooter that you came in on? Claude came in on a scooter from Forest Hills. God bless you. Is that one of your favorite cultural things? Do you get that? That's kind of European in a way, right?
Yes, I mean, spending most of my time in the kitchen. I like to enjoy outside free time. Go for a walk with my family and spend some time on the outdoor walking. It's what I'm doing most besides cooking, eating, and drinking.
Okay. Yeah, that I have to ask you, when we're talking about culture and activity, so with all the butter, the cream, the wonderful desserts, the wine, how does the French stay so skinny? Does anyone, you can tell me, because you walk a lot?
I've got a very
just tell us,
easy
and this way we
answer.
can eat all that good food and then...
When people ask me for that question, he said, I answer that the best way to stay healthy and skinny, not obviously skinny, but healthy, it's to eat well. That's very important. To eat well, to balance your meal, and not snack in between your meal, and then you're gonna stay healthy.
So
and that's most
of butter and all of that.
Of course, I do eat butter. I do eat some cream.
You heard it here, everybody. We can eat all the good stuff. Like Claude said, we still can maintain our weight.
Yes,
that's
but
wonderful.
Again, don't abuse it.
Yes, of course. No, that's not good. That's not good. All right, now I'm gonna rile up the discussion a little bit because I've been watching Emily in Paris, and they bring up a little bit of I think a little negativity about the Parisians versus the Southern French. Imagination, or does this really exist? Is it, the Parisians, how well does everybody like each other? Is there a little bit of a competition? Look, he's laughing. I think I hit something here. Oh, Greg's gonna answer it.
Yeah.
But you're American.
Well, no, but I haven't seen the show, but I think that'd be like comparing New York to the rest of the United States. I
Right,
mean,
right, exactly.
you know, Paris is extremely cosmopolitan, extremely fast-paced,
Sophisticated.
extremely
Yes.
sophisticated, and life is a little slower, of course, in the provinces. So oftentimes I think the Parisians get a bad rap for being rude. But that's exactly what people say about New Yorkers as well.
It's true.
They think we're fast-paced.
Yes.
And in fact, we're not. We're actually quite friendly. We're welcoming.
Yes.
And so
That's true.
I think even if you make the slightest effort to speak some French and to say bonjour and to ask for help and to ask for directions, you'll find great people in either Paris or the provinces.
What would you say when people say that?
I mean, I think Parisians are very proud of being Parisians, and the people like me, like being from Brittany, I'm very proud of being from Brittany too. But I think we are more open-minded, being in the countryside than the Parisians, because I'm not gonna make Parisians friends today. But no, they think no. There's a lot of not all of them, of course, but like some Parisians think that they are that France is only Paris, but all the culture in France is like in Paris, like culinary talking, like the wine is outside, and the cheeses, except they have the breed more that's outside of Paris, but I don't know, but I think they treat better the Americans than the French that comes from other states. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because they think they are here and we are here.
Oh, very
so they are like
interesting. Yeah.
like we say shishi poo poo.
I love that. And Fabiano, are you from Paris?
I live in Paris.
I love that. I love it. But he's agreeing. Claude, we're going to get you in trouble too. Do you want to answer that question?
I think the problem is coming mainly from the language barrier. And, when people cannot understand each other, it causes some problems between people. But now I think French are getting better and better in English speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Then they can break that barrier, and it's getting better. Between the Parisian, the Southern people, or I think it's becoming more from the cultural point of view. We have the people from Marseille have an accent that the Parisian find funny, and vice versa. And this is the way of people living every day on the metro, and the people from Marseille are living outside by the sea. It's maybe more pleasant, I'm sure it does have an influence on your character, your way to live, and that's with the diversity.
Very nice. I know when I was there, the French, especially the Parisians, they love when you speak French or you make the attempt, even if it's not the best pronunciation. But I think they appreciate it if you try to speak in their language. I don't know how we're doing on time. Just about. Okay. We have, a couple more minutes? Okay. We have 5 more minutes. We have a question in the audience. Yes, Dr. Gunnis.
So I have a question. How much time do you feel
I first went into the industry when I was 14 years old, and I kept going, like it was first like on weekends and vacation, then it would be the whole summer, and then it just continued. Like I have a few restaurateurs in my family too, and I remember my grandfather when I was like 13, he's like 14. He told me like, "Oh, I will build," because there was like a bâtisse like behind his like next to his house, and he was like, when you will be old enough, I will build you a restaurant."
Aw, oh, that's sweet. That's cute. I love it. Well, we have a couple more minutes. Can we squeeze in a little bit of French wine? What would you say is, if I'm going to buy some French wine, what's the best region to buy French wine? Don't ask you, Vincent.
I mean, it's about it's about the same as like where to go if you want one place to revisit, because there's different wines. Like Bordeaux is more like on the heavy side. Burgundy is like on the lighter notes. Like the southwest of France, it's like a lot of terroir also. It all depends like the taste. Like I think it's difficult to pick one. So you just need to pick.
What is the champagne? Is what the champagne region is the most famous? What makes you really well? I would say Burgundy.
I mean, my favorite is Burgundy wines, but I can drink some Bordeaux. I can drink some wine from the Loire Valley. It's like sometimes it depends on the moment, the weather, the food, the occasion. So it really depends.
Right. Thank you. Well, I think we're out of time, but I want to thank everybody who has signed on virtually. I hope you really felt the French. We got immersed in all of the French culture here today. Today, I feel like I'm Emily, not in Paris, but Emily in Jackson Heights, New York. Right? I love just to hear, the way you speak the English language. It's so beautiful. I mean, the French language is exquisite. And we hope, with the pandemic, as Claude and Vincent have shared with us, it's really been a challenge for restaurant owners. And you can see, Vincent, what he says about the love and all of that. Certainly when you come to Bistro Eloise, it's the hospitality is just wonderful. And that's why I always like to come here. Obviously, the food and the wine is good, but it's really the people and the relationship that you build. And it's really, it's a nice experience when I come here and dine, with my family. So I can't thank you enough. I mean, he's supposed to be opening up in like 2 minutes, and we've taken over his entire restaurant, and it's been so nice. And Claude, he comes from a scooter all the way from Forest Hills to be with us today. Claude, that was so sweet of you. Thank you so much. And Greg, all the time that you put into your presentation, you can see St. John's is very lucky to have him as a teacher. And St. John's really has an excellent international education program. So I hope you learned a little bit about that today. So how do we end this in the French way? What should we say? Besides merci beaucoup.
Bonne journée.
Bonne journée. Bonne
Bon
journée.
appétit.
And bon appetit. I can't wait to eat the food. Sorry you're not here with us. Bye-bye. Au revoir.